to this computer. Here we go. For those online who joined recently, conference room is having a little bit of a delayed setup because lunch is ready to go over there with special annual meeting treats. So we'll probably start in another 2 to 3 minutes. For those who just joined recently, I think we're going to be starting very soon. Sounds like there's a full house in the conference room and everybody's getting lunch.
Right, we're just about to start, everybody.
Okay, everyone. I hope everyone's got lunch. We'll call the meeting of the Metropolitan Planning Organization to order. First action is on the minutes from August 26th. Do you have any comments, additions, edits?
I will also move that, Mr. Chair.
Okay, we have a motion to accept the minutes. We have a second.
Second.
Okay, second, and we'll take the votes in conjunction with a roll call.
Okay, here we go. Excitement. So From Auburn, we have in the room Chris Sterndale.
Here, and I.
From Bedford, we have our newest alternate, Ed Comiskey.
Hello.
Hi, Ed. Thanks for being here. Online, we have Mark Snyder. Mark, you just have to unmute.
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry about that. I couldn't find the unmute button.
It happens. It happens. From Candia, we have Ron Lavender.
Here. I'm steady.
Okay, thank you. From Chester in-house, we have Deb Munson.
Here and yes.
And Andrew Haddock online.
Present and yes.
Hey, thank you, Andrew. From Deerfield in-house, we have Errol Rhodes.
Present and yes.
Thanks, Errol. From Derry in-house, we have John O'Connor.
Present, yes.
Thanks, John. Appreciate you. From Derry online, we have Jeff Moulton.
Here and yes.
Excellent. Francistown in-house, we have Gary Schneckenberg.
Here and yes.
Thanks, Gary. From Goffstown, this is a great group. We have in-house Joanne Duffy,
Here and abstain.
Barbara Griffin,
Here and abstain.
and Jacob LaFontaine. And Ray, come on, sit down. We have a couple people hiding. There's plenty of room near me and I don't bite hard. Thank you, Ellen.
Sit with me.
All right, while everyone's regrouping, from Londonderry, we have Art Rugg in house.
Here and yes on the minutes.
And we also have Deb Levins.
Here and yes.
Thanks, Deb. Online, we have Brian Battaglia
Here and abstain.
and Suzanne Brunel.
Here and yes.
Awesome. Let's see, from Manchester, we have in-house Dan O'Neill,
Here and yes.
Eliza Augusta,
Here and yes.
Kevin Shepherd,
Here and abstain.
and Ray Clement.
He's here and yes, I think.
He's here and,
Okay, so-
oh, he's getting his lunch. No problem. I also have my homegrown tomatoes in today. You people are missing a lot. I'm just saying. New Boston, Ellen Campbell.
Here and abstain.
Thanks, Ellen. From where? Thank you, Danny, online.
Here and abstain.
Thanks. And that was Danny Jean Stewart. And let's see, also from Wyndham in-house, we have Ed LaPointe
Here and abstain.
and Peter Griffin.
Here and yes.
All right. Did I miss anyone from our communities? Yay. From the New Hampshire DOT, we have Bill Watson.
Here and approve.
Thank you. And we have Mike Whitten.
I'm here and I vote yes.
Thank you, Mike. Just to also recognize, we have Craig Tufts from Central New Hampshire Regional Planning Commission.
Hi, Sylvia.
Hi. And I'm not sure, Sheena Gilbert, what group are you representing?
Hi, I was just about to type into the chat. I'm from Hooksett. I'm the representative for the town of Hooksett, and I will be
Oh.
abstaining.
I am so sorry. You are on my list. I've just never called your name, so I am so excited.
Well, thank you for
Virtual-
having me.
Yes. Now, just to let you know, Sheena, that we do have an opening for the executive committee, and that is one heck of a fun group. So feel free to join that group as well.
I appreciate the offer. I will keep you posted.
Thank you. Let's see. And I just want to also acknowledge from Londonderry, Kristen Farr is also here. Hi, Kristen. All right, that is our roll calls.
Okay, thank you, Sylvia. On to new business. The intended action is to adopt tip amendment number 2, so hand it over to Nate.
All right. We'll try to move quickly because we have a lot on the agenda today. Let's see if I can find there it is. And I'm gonna go back to this. Bear with me just a second. There's a lot of open windows here on this
The tomatoes are great, by the way. Gluten-free cookies this time. I would have missed them.
Okay, can everyone see this in full screen mode?
Looks good.
All right, great. I will move fairly quickly here because we did cover all of the project changes in tip amendment number 2 last month. And the tip amendment 2 document was included in your packet. So there's nothing particularly new here, although I do want to highlight a couple of things. We released tip amendment 2. We went through all the projects at our August meeting. We released tip amendment 2 on September 8th. We held a 10-day public comment period that ran until September 19th, last Friday. Our technical advisory committee, or TAC, met last Thursday. They unanimously recommended adoption of tip amendment number 2, and in accordance with our public process, today is the public hearing to consider adoption of tip amendment number 2. We did not receive any public comments. However, I had a couple of comments on the docket, just technical items that I noticed that I just wanted to highlight really quickly. I let DOT know about these 2 technical issues, and they will fix them in the final docket. I just wanted to note that for the Bedford 40664 project, the Route 3 widening project, the fiscal 28 right-of-way funding should reflect STBG, Surface Transportation Block Grant funding, in the 50 to 200,000 category. It was previously noted as TAP funding. I think that was just a Scribner's error on the part of the docket. So that will be corrected. And then Manchester 24206, the Salmon Street westbound project, the Clean Air Act code should be corrected to be exemption code 19, what we call E19, which is a exemption code for bridge rehabilitation projects. So those are kind of 2 technical items that we'll see in the final version of the docket that I wanted to just highlight. Other than that, there were no public comments. And at this point, I can walk through, if people would like me to, the project changes once again, or I can spare you all that, and you could, we'd be happy to entertain any final public comments on tip amendment number 2, or welcome a motion to adopt with those 2 changes, technical changes that I just noted.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Hey, this includes, by accepting this, does this include the change in the plan on the 3 turnpike projects?
Well, some of that is 10-year plan oriented. So the only real change to the turnpike projects in Manchester in Amendment 2 is to consolidate the engineering phase funding, which is currently programmed over 3 years, fiscal 26, 27, and 28, to fiscal 26 and 27. The right-of-way phase funding is coming out of the tip years. It's still programmed in the 10-year plan, but in the 2 out years of the 10-year plan. So the only real change here with the turnpike project is consolidating those engineering funds. So engineering is continuing to move forward, and it's going to be, the funding is programmed in over the course of 2 years rather than 3 in this.
Didn't you present at the last meeting delays in the widening, the Everett 6 and 7, and then local?
Yeah, and those are all reflected in the 10-year plan. Those aren't necessarily going to be things that appear in tip amendment number 2. The only turnpike related item in tip amendment 2 is just the consolidation of those engineering funds.
Any other comments, questions?
And they, just as a question, forgive my ignorance, related to this. On the Bedford widening to access. Notice most recently the discussion of putting rotaries along that route. Is that part of this program, or is that something separate?
That's one of the design alternatives for this particular project. So this project is looking at improvements to Route 3 between Hawthorne Drive North and Ravensworth Drive. The DOT and their engineering consultant, HDR, is in the midst of evaluating with stakeholders in the town and the town council different design alternatives for that project. So they are kind of vetting those engineering designs, but it is this this project is the, the funding for that effort. Yeah.
Thank you.
Who was amended?
Okay, we have a motion to accept tip amendment 2 as amended. Second by Art. All in favor? Aye.
Yes.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Sorry, aye.
All the folks online, if you could maybe raise your hand in case you're muted so we can see.
Thumbs up.
Okay.
Thank you.
Aye.
Oh.
Good job, Mike.
Floating thumbs up.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Got a raised hand from Bill. All right, looks like it was unanimous.
Okay,
All right,
next, Sylvia, a hearing review.
I know, it's very exciting. So let me pull this up. I can't see. Oh, is it this one? Yes, thank you. Okay, so that's that. Where am I? Zoom. Go back here, share. This one, right? Okay, thank you, share. All right, and then, let's see, I need to go in show. Go from beginning. All right, can our home viewers see this full screen presentation?
Yep, it looks good.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, I've timed myself. If I only breathe 3 times, I can do this in 10 minutes. Thank you for laughing. It was meant to be.
Take a deep one to start.
Yeah, deep one to start. So some of you, especially those who are new, typically we've had an annual meeting over at the dairy field or similar fun venue. But this year, everyone, you decided, nope, let's be low key this year. We'll just stay here at the commission. It's cozy. And next year for the 60th, we'll go big. So we are here, but I still wanted to acknowledge this is an annual meeting. And some of you, I'm gonna make her even smaller. Appreciate. I wanted to showcase some of the things we've done in this past year. And just as a guide, you can see all our communities here on the right. When they're highlighted, those are the communities we've worked with on that particular instance. So I'm just going to walk through some of the things we do specifically. In this case, we do circuit riding services because not every community is like a Manchester that has multiple planning staff. So we've provided on-call planning assistance. We've met with developers, supported planning boards with site plan and subdivision review, and provided regulatory guidance. And you can see that we've done this. I'm going to be blocking Auburn every time. For Auburn, Deerfield, and Londonderry. We do developments of regional impact when your planning boards determine that the application that's come in is of regional impact, we get notification. And Dave and I will review those. We've reviewed multiple plans, coordinated with staff, discussing concerns, and then we provide our insights. And you can see the communities, Auburn, Bedford, Candia, Derry, Goffstown, Hooksett, Londonderry, Manchester, all these communities have made that sort of declaration. Hazard mitigation plans. You can see Cam in the foreground there working with one of the communities. And in this case, this past year, Deerfield, Francistown, and Wyndham, we wrapped up hazard mitigation plans. We coordinate with the committees and work with town staff. We develop actionable strategies to reduce risks and make sure communities maintain FEMA funding eligibility. HOP grants, or the Housing Opportunity Planning grants. Candia, Deerfield, and Londonderry were lucky enough to obtain those grants. We assisted in those grant applications, and we also have provided implementation support. Master plan assistance. Suzanne and our team have just finished with Chester's master plan update, and we are ongoing with Londonderry's. And we facilitate lots of meetings with the steering committees. We research and analyze data. We've coordinated community engagement and, of course, drafted plan content. Our little transportation sampler with these specific communities, some of the more unique projects. We completed New Boston's road surface management system project analysis. That's going out. We do windshield assessments of the driveway of the road. You can see this particular instance here. That's an example of, what the type of service we're looking at. And we're in the middle of Auburn's as well, but we analyze, we develop strategies, including pavement management scenarios. Region 8, the Regional Coordinating Council, we helped with the MTA expansion of services with Goffstown and Hooksett. We coordinated a freight listening session with regional companies and trade organizations. Bike ped counts, many of the communities really enjoy these because our counts help with grant applications. It also provides information on usage patterns to support other planning efforts. We also do long-term bike ped trail counting. With 4 of our communities, we've done that for year-long trail counts. And again, that helps with future grants. With our volunteer driver programs, we have helped expand services into Deerfield, New Boston, and where there either were no transportation alternatives or they were being pulled back. And so we collaborated across multiple stakeholders and agencies to provide services for older and disabled residents. Our brownfield assessment program, it's so interesting. Not just our largest community, but our smallest community has benefited from our brownfields program. And in our smallest community, that was with Crotched Mountain, a phase 2 environmental assessment, and in Manchester Arms Park, a phase 1 and 2. And Cam is now working with Londonderry on a possible site.
Barbara, Sylvia, was that picture, Barbara gets in my head here, was that Arms Textile, that picture?
This one here.
Yeah.
Yes, it was, Dan.
Go ahead, Cam. Anything further?
If that was Dan O'Neill, yes, this is an old picture from when they first closed it down.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yep. Thanks, Cam. So some of the projects that are really tailored to what you're asking for. In Francistown, a natural resource inventory and conservation plan. Suzanne and Zach work primarily with the group from Francistown, collaborating with volunteers, assisted with community engagement. That included a survey and a public workshop, and as Zach always does, providing GIS mapping expertise. In Derry, working with Elizabeth, we helped with the Derry Gateway District and collaborated with town staff and the steering committee to address changes related to Exit 4A, helping to facilitate a community workshop, really to develop a new vision for this gateway district, including zoning and economic development opportunities. Manchester highlights. There are 3 Manchester slides, so buckle in. So one of those projects was an application for the road safety audit at Mass and Varney, and we assisted with that application. And it was a successful application. We assisted with one of the many SMART grants, not many SMART grants, one of the many grants, one of them being SMART. Well, that sounds funny too. Sorry about that.
Opposed to the other one.
Yeah. Thank you, Gary. Anyway, that application included traffic signal improvements and, yeah, so good work there. Get off that slide as soon as possible. Suzanne works a lot with Manchester Connects, facilitating volunteer groups and developing community projects such as the stair crossing at Pleasant and Canal. That assistance resulted in a grant award of $25,000 to advance improvements. And also, as you can see here, a really great group of the Park to Park cleanup event. And that recruited over 200 volunteers to clean up 14 city parks and surrounding sidewalks. And the last Manchester, another unique project. This is us working with MTA, the Alliance for Healthy Aging, Victory Women of Vision right here in Manchester, a group that serves refugee families and immigrants, and Transport New Hampshire, but we provided outreach and education opportunities surrounding community transportation. This is particularly fun. This event is one of the beach bus programs and events. So for New Boston, working with them on Pathways to Play, we facilitated a local work group, supported implementation of Play Space Action Plan to improve connections to recreation resources, encouraged partnerships in creating a new kiosk and map. I believe that was the Eagle Scouts that worked on that. And then Wind Corridor Study, continuing to provide technical support in the 111 Corridor Study, participated and continue to participate in PAC, which is the Public Advisory Committee, who often debates on how to best address congestion and safety for that corridor. So wrapping up with region-wide highlights, you, I think, recently heard about the TRIP, and this is the resilience plan to assist communities in addressing flood hazards and enhance reliability of transportation systems, researching options for potential reduction in local cost share for resilience-related projects. And this just recently been reviewed by our federal partners, and it's slated for adoption in October. Pathways to Play again, updating the website, creating a regional GIS layer of recreational resources and the links to transit. We encourage cross-community knowledge sharing and highlighted the importance of accessibility through inclusive playground through a webinar. The MTP outreach, you probably remember seeing this quite a bit from James Veo. We continue to update the MTP, the Metropolitan Transportation Plan, creating websites. We've done surveys and fielded almost 500 participants in that. And Jim did a lot of work in reviewing local master plans and interviewing municipal leaders. And the last one I'm mentioning is the Safe Routes for All Safety Action Plan, or Safe Streets for All, sorry. We participated in that steering committee and assisted in developing a regional action plan, which helps lay out foundation for future grants. So that's the last one. Okay, that was our yearly news. Thank you. All right.
I'd like to ask that the assembled commissioners offer an expression of appreciation for all of the work exemplified here and what we all know done by the SNHPC staff on behalf of our communities over the past year. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Sylvia, there's other business here. Do you want to bring that forward at this point?
No, next go round.
All right, so that is.
I do have one item of other business. Just a plug.
Oh, yeah.
We have 2 more GACIT hearings remaining in the region, the Governor's Advisory Commission on Intermodal Transportation, GACIT, We had our hearing in Manchester last Tuesday. About 35 people came. We had some good discussion, good comments from those in attendance. We have 2 more GACIT hearings in the region, September 29th in Derry at the Derry Municipal Center on Manning Street at 7 p.m. That will be a joint session for both Derry and Londonderry and the surrounding communities. Both executive counselors will be there. Derry is in Councillor Janet Stevens' district. Londonderry is in Councillor John Stevens' district. So 2 executive counselors will jointly be coordinating that hearing. So hopefully it'll be a good turnout in Derry, and we'll hear lots of good feedback on the draft 10-year plan. The following night, September 30th, we will be in Bedford at 6 p.m. at the Bedford meeting room in the cable TV meeting room, which is on 10 Meeting House Road. If you're familiar, it was a little building with a cable TV studio and kind of the main meeting room for the town of Bedford, where I think town council meets there and everything meets there. So that's on 10 Meeting House Road, and we will be there again on September 30th at 6 p.m. So please, if you didn't have the chance to get out to the Manchester hearing, but want to have your say on the draft 10-year plan, those are the next 2 opportunities in our region. And the full hearing schedule, and I think there are more than 24 of them around the state, is posted on the New Hampshire DOT's website. So if you're interested in the full hearing schedule around the state, you can find it there. But at least in our region, September 29th in Derry, September 30th. Thank you.
Thank you, Nate.
All right, good plug.
Any other business to come before the commission? Okay, I will entertain a meeting to adjourn the MPO.
So moved.
Either moved and second.
So that was Peter and Art.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Okay, motion carried.
Thanks.
We will reconvene as the Southern New Hampshire Regional Planning Commission, and the first order of business again is to act on the minutes from the 26th meeting. Any comments, additions, edits that folks would like to make? We have a motion to approve. Was that second? Art second again? All those in favor of approval of the minutes? Say aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions?
Snyder abstains.
Okay.
Thomas will abstain. Behind you, Mr. Chairman.
Our new member.
Ed from Bedford abstains.
And Barbara.
Barbara Griffin abstains.
Kevin Shepherd.
Kevin Shepherd from.
Ellen. Yep.
And Ellen.
And Mark Snyder abstained.
Yes, Mark.
Okay.
Snyder. Did you get all that, Aloyal?
Brian Battaglia abstains.
Okay. Usually we go around.
Yeah, I thought this would be faster since we have.
Yeah, I don't know
It
if it
Didn't work.
did.
I think you got a majority.
Joanne also abstained. All right.
Last time I tried that. So. So as part of our annual meeting, we have a presentation today.
Did we say we're starting the meeting?
Did we?
I don't think there was an actual vote now. Was there?
No.
No vote. You don't need to vote to start.
For the minutes. Did we actually vote?
Yeah.
Oh, we did.
Yes.
Okay.
The abstentions were.
All right. Okay. I feel good. Thank you.
Okay. So I will hand it over to Sylvia to introduce our guest presenter today.
Well, we are so fortunate. Sorry about my back, people online. We are very fortunate. Every annual meeting, we work very hard at getting a special presenter, and we have ours today right here, Phil Sletten. And I'm going to read, sorry, Phil, right from my cheat sheet. Phil is I've heard Phil speak many times. It's very interesting. Buckle in. There's going to be a lot of data. That's now, I said I was gonna read from my cheat sheet and I didn't, but he's the research director at New Hampshire Fiscal Policy Institute, where he's worked since 2016. Before joining the institute, Phil worked for the New Hampshire Legislators Budgets Office as an auditor. He has expertise in research and analysis related to the state budget, state revenues and expenditures, the economy, and the financial well-being of granite staters with low and moderate incomes. He's earned his bachelor's in political science and policy studies from Grinnell College and master's of public affairs from the University of Wisconsin. So I'm not going to go more on about the institute or about what Phil is going to talk about, because he will be the one you really want to hear from. So thank you, Phil, for being here today. Thank you. We'll get this going for you. Let's see. Oh,
Forgive me, but I'm thinking I'll orient myself roughly this way if I could.
let me get you started here, Phil, if I can. Where you are. I'm not sure how to do this in big mode.
I think there's should be one more option that I think is hidden under there.
I'll let you
Sure.
do it.
All right, great.
Yeah.
See if I can, there's used to be Control L worked. There we go. Good. Thank you all for your time. I'm hoping everyone can see me and hear me to the extent you want to. Thank you all for your time this afternoon. I really appreciate it. Again, my name is Phil Sletten. I'm the research director at the New Hampshire Fiscal Policy Institute. NHFPI is a nonprofit, independent, nonpartisan policy research organization. We examine the state budget, state revenue, the state economy, and the economic security of granite staters. I was asked to talk to you all today about the state economy and how well people are faring in the state economy, and what are some of the factors and influences on the state economy today, with some focus in on some regional variations as well, because I've tried to pull some data that's relevant to your region. I do want to flag, my apologies, there is a typo in this presentation. So with sharp eyes, if you notice it, I will post these presentation slides later. So before you ask, yes, they'll be on our website at NHFPI.org, and you'll be able to find them there with the typo corrected. I found it, of course, after I sent it to Silver. So first, let's walk through. I do want to talk about the economy in New Hampshire today, but the latest data is actually going to be at the end of the presentation. I'm going to walk through some of the key factors that are affecting the economy before that. So let's talk about us first. Let's talk about New Hampshire. And I should say as well, if you have a technical question about a slide, please feel free to raise your hand and ask. I don't mind stopping at all, because I don't want someone to look at a slide and be confused by what's on it and get hung up on that. This is about, Sylvia told me I had about 45 minutes. I'm planning on talking for about 35 minutes of that, with about 10 minutes for questions and answers, if that still fits within the agenda timeline. Okay, great. So if you have a big question, maybe save it for the end, but if you have a specific question about a slide, feel free to raise your hand. I don't mind being interrupted. Just make sure I see you. Okay. So let's talk about us first. What do we look like in measurable ways in the state of New Hampshire? So this is our age profile as a state by 5-year age cohort. You can see the darker green at the bottom are basically those of us who are kids, right? It's up to age 19. The lighter green in the middle are those of us age 25 to 54. Those of us who are age 65 or older are in those two different shades of blue. And then those of us who are age 55 to 59 and age 60 to 64, you can see us in those two orange stripes. And I highlight those because if we're thinking about New Hampshire's economy and New Hampshire's workforce going forward, there's about 210,000 of us that are in those two age groups. And those two age groups are the largest and third largest age groups. They actually used to be the two largest, but in the latest year of data, the 65 to 69 edged out the 55 to 59 age group. So there's about 210,000 of us in a state of 1.41 million people who are nearing what you might call traditional retirement age. Now, that doesn't mean that once we hit age 65, we drop out of the labor force. Indeed, far from it. About 9 to 10% of the New Hampshire labor force is age 65 or older, right? So these are individuals who are working or looking for work, right? So these are folks who are employed, and a small portion that are unemployed, but are actively available and seeking work. So that portion of the labor force, again, that roughly 9%, 9 to 10% is 65 and older. About 22% of labor force is age 55 to 64. So not quite a third, but almost a third of us are age 55 or older who are in the labor force. Yes.
Question, these are wage earners, or are they nonprofit also?
So this is everyone who is working at a job, right? Whether it's part-time or full-time. So there's part-time workers in here too. If you have one part-time job, you still count here. Or who is actively seeking work, meaning that you looked for a job in the last 4 weeks. Right. So, but this is based on surveys. This is based on surveying individuals and households. So later we'll see some employer-based data, but this is based on when you survey New Hampshire residents, you ask them, this survey asks them, are you working or are you looking for work? And have you looked for work in the last 4 weeks? And if the answer to either of those questions is yes, then what's your age? And that's the breakdown that you see here. I hope that answered your question. Yeah. Okay, great. So obviously, if you look at the 20 to 54 age group, remember everyone who was in green before, that is more than half of the labor force currently. But if we are thinking about where New Hampshire's economy is headed, then 31% of the workers in New Hampshire's economy being 55 or older suggests that when we're moving into the future, into the subsequent decades, those workers, those of us who are 55 or older, they have to have someone following up behind them to fill those jobs. And as you saw in the age profile, there aren't as many people in those younger age groups. So but again, it's not as though everyone stops working at age 65. So it's more of an off ramp, right? Now let's look at the long-term growth trajectory of New Hampshire's population. And we're back to population, not workforce here. This is going back to the 1940s. How many people were added to New Hampshire's population every year on average in those decades? So 1940s all the way to the first 4 years of this decade thus far. And you can see in the 1960s and particularly in the 70s and 80s, we see that growth accelerate. In the 1970s and 1980s, we're talking about adding 18,000 people a year to the state every year. So think about that's probably like somewhere between a Goffstown and a Bedford that's added to the state every year, right? That slowed in the 1990s and the first decade of this century. Second decade of this century, 2010s, we see that down to about 6,000 people a year. Now, there has been population growth, particularly since the COVID-19 pandemic in New Hampshire, but we're seeing that, that's close, that gets us closer to 8,000 people a year thus far this decade. So not the same pace of growth that we saw, for example, in the 70s, 80s, or even the 1990s. So I hope that's helpful context. And again, this is people moving into the state, people leaving the state, people born here, people dying here. That's all aggregate here. This is just population growth. Where is the population growth happening? So this is looking from 2010 to 2024, which counties gained population and how much did they gain? In this time period, Coos County was the only one that lost population, so far northern New Hampshire. Although if you look at just at this decade, every county grew. And just from 2020 and on, every county grew. And here you can see overall statewide population growth between 2010 and 2024 was 7%. However, it was fastest in Carroll County, so think like northeastern parts of the Lakes region in New Hampshire. Fastest in Carroll County at that 9.5%, but then the next fastest was Rockingham County at 8.6%, also adding about 25,000 people. Hillsborough County was 6.6%, but that added the most people, right, because you start from that highest population base. And for the Hooksett folks in the room, Merrimack County, you can see 7.3%. That was a little more than 10 or a little under 11,000 people added over this time period. About 3/4 of New Hampshire's population is in those 4 southeastern counties. So it makes sense that those lower rates of growth lead to more people, even though they're low rates of growth. But this gives you a sense of how fast the population is growing in different parts of the state, or at least has over the last 14 years. So how is that population growth happening? We talked a little bit about where it's happening. Where are folks coming from? Where are folks leaving to? There are 3 basic components of population growth that you can derive from 6 numbers. One is how many people are born versus how many people died in the state. One is how many people moved from another state to New Hampshire, or another part of the United States to New Hampshire, and how many people moved away, right? Subtract that. And that's net domestic migration. And then net international migration is how many people moved to another country and how many people moved from another country to New Hampshire. And so here you can see those 3 components in these 3 different color bars. This is 2010 to 2024. You can see the zero line, not quite in the middle, but to the little left of the middle. Births minus deaths. So how many people were born minus how many people passed away. That is the green bar. And you can see that since about 2017, that's been a net negative on the state's population. Right? Over this whole time period, 2010 to 2024, we've lost on net about 2,000 to 3,000 people in terms of births minus deaths in the state. Net domestic migration. See, actually, go 15 years ago, and that was net negative. There were more people leaving the state for other parts of the country than were coming to New Hampshire. That changed substantially starting, you could say 2017, 2018, but those increases were particularly large following the COVID-19 pandemic. If you look at 2021, 2022, those blue bars are very large, right? And then net international migration has been the most consistent source of positive population growth. In that there are more people moving here from other countries than there are moving from New Hampshire to other countries. It has varied, but it is the only source over this time period that has been positive throughout. And as a result, if you look from 2010 to 2024, I mentioned that we've had more deaths than births in New Hampshire. We have also had slightly more international migration than we've had domestic migration over this time period. So all of our population growth is from migration, is from people moving from elsewhere to New Hampshire. And the bare majority of that, a small majority, but the bare majority of that is because of international migration as opposed to domestic migration. So international migrants have driven more than half of our population growth over this time period. And how does this break down by county? Where are people moving to and from on a county level? This is keeping the same colors that you just saw in the prior graph, and this is only this decade, so 2020 to 2024. And you'll see that Hillsborough County actually stands out here as having a different pattern. Most counties in the state, you see there being more deaths than births, and you see more net domestic migration, and international migration is a factor, but it's generally a small positive number. In Hillsborough County, we see net domestic migration being essentially zero over this time period. And remember, this is because we're looking at counties now. Someone moving from Hillsborough County to Sullivan County, for example, would count as net domestic migration away or migration away from Hillsborough County. So this is also capturing those within state data. And you can see Hillsborough County is the only one that has more births than deaths. And it's also the only the one that is most reliant on net international migration for the population growth that has been seen over the time period. Rockingham County and Merrimack County look a little bit more typical relative to other counties in the state in that composition. Rockingham County has, over this time period, the most population growth, or the highest bars from those from international and domestic migration.
So is that showing, like, Hillsborough County is no blue, so there's not much domestic migration?
Net domestic migration is about zero, again, over this time period, so thus far this decade. Yeah. So that doesn't mean that people aren't moving in, but it means that it's balanced out by people moving out. So what do we know about folks moving to New Hampshire? Where are people coming from, and where are people going away to? What you see in the bar chart here is our 5 other New England states. And if it's a positive number, it means that more people are coming to New Hampshire than are going to that other state. If it's a negative number, that means more people are going to that other state than are coming from that other state to New Hampshire. So, and we see 2018, 2019. Unfortunately, we don't have data for 2020 or 2024 yet. And then 2021, 22, 23. So basically a little bit of both sides of the pandemic, right? Or both sides of the acute period of the pandemic. Massachusetts, unsurprisingly, has been contributing more to New Hampshire's population than people from New Hampshire moving to Massachusetts, although there is a significant flow that direction as well. It's just counterbalanced by more flow from Massachusetts to New Hampshire. So those are those tall orange bars that you see. Notably, in 2023, it actually slowed substantially. And I don't have an explanation for that. That's based on these data alone, but we can talk about some of the constraints on growth of the population later in the presentation. And then Maine is actually, since the pandemic, has been a pretty significant draw for New Hampshire residents. More people are moving from New Hampshire to Maine than are going the other direction. So it's historically has not been significant as Massachusetts, although in 2023, the numbers are actually getting a little closer to balance, which is, again, interesting based on the data we have so far. Outside of New England, if we look at 2021 to 2023, and this is actually a little different than the years immediately after the pandemic, the composition of these states changed. Where are we gaining population from? California, which is a very large state, so there's going to be a lot more movement, but more people are moving from California to New Hampshire than are moving the other direction. Pennsylvania, Nevada, Alabama, Mississippi, we see as well. If you just looked at the 2 years after the pandemic, actually New York and New Jersey were in here too, but Alabama and Mississippi seem to contribute more to us in the 2023 data, interestingly. It's not particularly surprising where we're losing population to, generally warmer places. So we see in the southeastern United States, Florida, South Carolina, Kentucky, North Carolina, Georgia. Other states do occasionally show up on this list. If you look at just the 2 years after the pandemic, Washington State was interestingly on this list too. So it's not just the southeastern United States, but it is pretty dominant when you look at where people are moving from New Hampshire to. So that gives a sense around the country. What about around the world? And yes.
Can I just ask a question about the community survey, which is the basis for this?
Mm-hmm.
Is that distributed every year?
So the US Census Bureau does ask that every year of 3 to 3.5 million households. That is distributed to get, they try to get roughly 1% of the population at least, to try to understand what's happening.
So that means in New Hampshire, we're looking at the results being extrapolated from how many responses?
Yes, it's a survey. So I don't know what it was for 2023. I haven't looked yet, but it's usually in the tens of thousands of households, right? So when we're talking about 3.5 million people, they try to get a representative survey for all of the geographies that they present, but it is not a census, right? It's not a census that goes out to everyone every year. It is based on sampling.
And so is the lack of data for 2020 because that was a census year?
No, they did do the American Community Survey that year, but the response rate dropped to about 71%, which was below the threshold at which they considered it high enough quality data to publish it as they do the other years. So people didn't respond to surveys as much during the pandemic. They did publish some experimental data, but because it's not the same quality, I didn't include it in the graph.
Do you, at your institute, when you get the survey results, know how many people in New Hampshire responded?
You can look that up. Yes.
Get that. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I just haven't looked at it for the 2024 data just came out like 2 weeks ago. And I don't remember the number for 2023. So my apologies for that, but it's a great question.
Pretty high margins of error on that ACS survey, aren't there?
It depends on which geography you're looking at. At the state level, with 1 year ACS, I feel pretty comfortable about that. At the local level, I use some other data, and I'm going to show you some of the administrative data that I use as an alternative. Because yes, you can look up what the poverty rate is in Francistown. That's published by the American Community Survey. But if you look at that margin of error, it doesn't actually tell you very much, right? They give you an estimate, but they're only, say it's 7%, but they may only be 90% confident that it's somewhere between 2% and what would that be then? 12%. So that's yes, that is
statewide. It's not a concern.
Statewide, they have a bigger sample. So it is far less concerning than it is if you're trying to really drill down to the local level. So that's an important caution because those numbers do exist. They're out there. You may see them. But it's important to know what that margin of error is because, again, it is a survey. It's the best data we have, but it's not perfect. Thank you. All right, and using a little bit more survey data. And this is, you'll see, aggregated over 5 years so that it's a larger sample. So, for example, this is 2018 to 2022. Part of the increase in racial and ethnic diversity that we've seen in New Hampshire is in part because of that international migration. If we look at the state as a whole, about 88% of the state's population identifies as white and non-Hispanic because the Census Bureau considers whether someone is Hispanic or not an ethnicity rather than a race. So both of those things are factored in. Whereas that's about 41% of individuals moving from other countries to New Hampshire and becoming New Granite Staters. Here you can see the countries of origin over that time period. And actually India is about a quarter of that total population that moved into New Hampshire. Dominican Republic, United Kingdom, Honduras, Nepal, China, Brazil, Germany, actually a pretty wide array of countries around the world. And what about the age of people who are moving to New Hampshire? Now, this is not a net number. This is just, did you move here and what is your age? Right? And this is from 2019 to 2023, again, aggregated so we have a little bit more precision, a little bit more confidence in the data. And you can see that New Hampshire has continued its historical trend of being attractive to young families, right? Because we see a lot of folks who are 25 to 34 moving to the state. Now, again, this is gross, not net, meaning this is just counting people who moved here, not counting people who moved away, which is why that international number is a fair bit smaller in this graph, because this is just counting people who've moved in. And there are one thing that sometimes people ask when they look at these data is, well, what about people who are moving here to retire? That clearly shows up, but it's not the bulk of the population that moves into the state. That's still adults in their, the teens are capturing, or they should be capturing, depending on how people respond to the surveys, should be capturing college students. But also we see the 25 to 34 and 35 to 44 age group being pretty significant here too.
Oh,
Yes.
What year is that from, or?
This is 2019 to 2023, aggregated over those 5 years.
Thank you very much.
Yep, you're welcome. Again, to make the data more reliable so that we have a little bit more and we can be a little more granular. So if you're moving to New Hampshire, you have to have a place to live when you come to New Hampshire, right? To successfully move here, you need housing to move into. So what does that look like? Well, let's look at home sale prices statewide. In 2018, the median single-family house sale price was $283,000 statewide. That went up to $514,000 in 2024. You'll see that Rockingham and Hillsborough County are actually the two most expensive here at $643,000 and $530,000. Merrimack County, again, for our Hooksett folks who are in the room, $475,000 is where that lands in 2024. Over that time period, what is the increase? And I'm going to do a shorter time period on this slide, a slightly longer one on the next one. What is that increase? For a single family house sale price, that's an 82% increase in the sale price of a house. If you are saying, well, I can't go to the homeowner market, maybe I'll go to the renter market. The rental prices didn't increase quite as fast over this time period, but it's still a 41% increase over this time period in the median 2-bedroom apartment rental price statewide. And renters are more likely to have lower incomes than homeowners. So for the median household in New Hampshire, it's about $100,000 a year was the income in 2024. For homeowner households, that's up at about $119,000. For renters, it's about half that at $59,000. So that gives you a sense of where the demographic breakdown and the income breakdown of those renter and homeowner households. Of course, there's somewhat different household sizes too. We'll talk about that in a moment. So this graph shows that the supply, certainly on both the purchase side, but on the rental side as well, which is where the graph focuses, is the driver of those cost increases. You can see the rental vacancy rate in those blue bars, which the New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority recommends that, where it says that 5% is a good rule of thumb for a balanced rental market, a 5% vacancy rate. The top of this graph is at 5%. So even going back to 2011, we don't see reaching that 5% mark, and it has gone down since then. For 2024, there aren't data available, and you can see the rent utility costs in that green line. Again, a longer time horizon, 10 years, the median 2-bedroom rent went up 58%. Hillsborough County and Rockingham County were both 63%. Manchester was a 60% increase. And then the single-family house sale price statewide went up 113% from 2015 to 2024. Hillsborough and Rockingham counties are actually a little bit lower than that. So rents went up a little faster, prices went up a little more slowly, and that's, thank you. And that is again, starting on a somewhat higher base than we see statewide. Was there a question, or are you approving of the lights? Okay, all right. Yeah. So thank you for that, Sylvia. Appreciate it. So just to compare these benchmark numbers again over this 10-year time horizon, overall inflation, which includes housing, went up 29% during this time period. Most of that's in the second half of the period. And then the average hourly wage in New Hampshire went up 41%, and per capita income went up 49%. So if you're slicing it based on those three, all of them are outpaced by what we see as the growth in housing costs. Yes.
I'm looking at the change in the data sources. Why don't you use the DRA sales report that calculates the transfer tax?
So I do look at real estate transfer tax, but when you say the sales report, do you mean the underlying that they report? Yeah. I mean, I use the New Hampshire Association of Realtors because they calculate that median. Is that median in that report from the DRA?
I think it's a set. I don't think they use the same number. I don't know.
Okay.
That's why I asked.
Yeah, so the DRA, the real estate transfer tax also includes, and it's a good question because I would like to look at that report. I'm only familiar with sort of the top line parts of it. The DRA, they're measuring any transaction, right? So it's sale of a property or interest in a property. So that's commercial, That's, interest in a property, not just the wholesale. So while the real estate transfer tax is driven in large part by single family house and condominium sale prices, there's also more that's captured in there than just housing. Okay. So, but it's a great question. Yes.
Going back a couple slides,
Sure.
Where you showed the quantity of people by age coming into the state.
Yes.
Do we have a comparison of how many people are leaving the state by age?
Great question. I don't have that here, unfortunately. But that is something that I would like to calculate because it is a question that I have and a question we commonly get showing these. Unfortunately, it's substantially harder to do because then you have to go to all the other data sets from all the other 50 states and see how people moved relative to their home from a year ago in New Hampshire. So that's a much more complex calculation, unfortunately, because these data, for example, the Census Bureau in the past has just made a table showing you these data, these state-to-state flows. State-to-state by age flows would be a much bigger project. So unfortunately, I don't have that for you today, but it is a great and important question because there is likely, I don't know, but there's likely much more churn in the 25 to 34 age group and the 18 to 24 age group, for example, in terms of outflows. Where that net is, I'm not positive. But when people ask about who's moving into the state, we at least know, regardless of churn, we at least know that younger people are coming to the state. We just don't know from these data how many are leaving.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and zooming in a little bit on renters and homeowners in the region. So statewide, about half of renter households are paying more than 30% of their income in rent and utilities in 2024. That's what you see in the pie chart. That's statewide. If you look at the table off to the side, and that 30% benchmark is a classic definition of cost burdened. Are you cost burdened by housing? Here you could see in Hillsborough County and Rockingham County, the renter households have about the same amount of cost burden. For homeowners with mortgages, it's a little more than a quarter of homeowners with mortgages in each county is paying 30% or more of their income in rent, in their mortgage payments, their monthly mortgage payments. And then renter median household income, you can see it's higher in Rockingham County than in Hillsborough County, both a little higher than the state overall. Homeowner median household income, we have roughly the same there as well. And if we look at renter households that are earning $35,000 a year or less, so lower income renter households, and these are aggregated over 5 years because again, as we get to smaller populations, you want to collect more and more data as you can. 2019 to 2023, in Hillsborough County on the left, Rockingham County on the right, both of them, about a quarter of renter households had less than $35,000 in income, adjusted for inflation to 2023 over this time period. And you can see that, interestingly, in Rockingham County, that blue slice is slightly smaller. 11% were paying less than 30% of their income. But the larger slice of 61% paying more than half their income in rent and utilities, that is actually smaller than what we see in Hillsborough County. So that suggests that Hillsborough County may have more opportunities for lower income renters, but also may have more of a ceiling when it comes to the affordability for more renters as well, because that's 63% of renters who are paying 50% or more of their income in rent and utilities in this income group. All right, so that's one cost. We talked about housing as a cost that households face. Let's talk about the other costs that households face. There are two different measures here, and I picked sort of the ends of each one. The one on the left is the Economic Policy Institute's Family Budget Calculator. This is designed to show what the cost is of a modest but adequate standard of living. And this is the constellation of costs they estimated for Hillsborough County. They tend, at EPI, they tend to have an estimate that is a little lower than the one to the right, which includes a little bit more. That is the Massachusetts Institute of Technology's Living Wage Calculator. And that's for Rockingham County. So what you're seeing is sort of the two ends of these cost of living estimates for these two counties. And Hillsborough County, you can see that for 2 adults and 1 child, the estimate was about $97,000 a year to cover these costs. And there's a methodology behind, 2 different sets of methodologies and researchers behind each of these. And then MIT's Living Wage Calculator estimates for Rockingham County, 2 working adults and 1 child, was about $110,000 was meeting that living wage threshold as they identified it. Now, even though you see different constellations of costs here, the three largest ones are housing, you can see in orange, transportation, and childcare. So let's talk about transportation and childcare, since we just talked a little bit about housing.
What is civic?
Yeah, so civic includes some things that are engaging with the community, the cost of going to events, the costs that are associated with participating in activities that may be either family-oriented or community-oriented. One of the reasons why I like that MIT separates that out is because you can take it out if you wanted to, if you didn't want to include that as a basic cost of living. That's one that MIT added relatively recently. You can still take that category out and see what do the rest of the costs look like. Because, for example, that is not something that is included in other necessities from EPI, but is something that MIT identified as like, if you're going to be a member of a community and getting your family out into the world and engaging with the community as a citizen, then there's going to be some costs associated with that. So like this graph is a pretty boring one, so my apologies, but I'm going to layer on to this. This is showing what is inflation for consumer goods and services from 2019 to 2024. And it's all indexed to 100. I'm going to show you several different values here, indexed to 100. This does tell us between, across those years that the cost of everything has gone up about 20%, right? So that's a pretty significant increase historically if you compare to the 5 years before. The cost of everything has gone up about 20%. But let's think about the other costs that households face. Here's food, for example. Food's gone up a little bit faster over that time period. Here are new vehicles. So you might be getting the sense that I'm talking about that transportation category now. Here are new vehicles, and they went up a little faster in 22 and 23, although evened out more in 24. This is not capturing what's happening with car prices this year so far and into next year. We don't have those data yet. Used vehicle prices, you can see a pretty substantial increase there. And this is not counting the interest cost if you are borrowing money to buy that used vehicle. This is just what that sticker price is. And especially in 2021 and 2022, we saw that transportation slice of the pie increase. Because if you have to buy a car, which most people in New Hampshire have to get around, then that cost went up. And then motor fuel, right? Some people drive around on electricity. I drove here on electricity. It's great. I recommend it, but it's not the way that most cars still motivate themselves, right? So this is a significant cost. And not everyone has access to a vehicle either. So what these two pie charts are showing is, again, aggregated over 5 years to collect more data from 2019 to 2023. Or the percentage of homeowners that have access to one vehicle, two vehicle, three vehicles, or no vehicle on the left. And then what are the percentage of renters who have access to that array of vehicles? And I would say only about 2% of homeowners don't have access to a vehicle, but about 12% of renter households. And there may be a variety of reasons for this. Some people may be choosing to not have a vehicle. Some people may have a disability that makes having a vehicle not worth it because you may not be able to drive it. But those no vehicle households, if we look at the income levels of those households, about 60% of those households have incomes that are below twice the poverty threshold, which suggests that there may be an income-related variable that affects people's ability to have a vehicle. And 35% of households with only one car have also those lower income levels. So that again suggests the cost may be a barrier for some households. Those no vehicle households and renters, that's about 18,000 households, just to give you a benchmark of how many households we're talking about. And on the childcare front, on early care and education, we do have a shortage of childcare statewide. And that you can see here this is the 2023 estimated shortage. The graph doesn't start at 0, so you can zoom in and see the difference. But you see the number of children who may be in need of some form of childcare on the left, and then the licensed childcare capacity on the right. So that shortage, like we see in housing, is likely increasing those costs. And my colleague, senior policy analyst Nicole Heller, did some economic analysis around the estimated cost to the state. This is family income, businesses, and tax revenue combined of each unavailable childcare slot. And that was about $22,000 to $35,000 overall cost for not having that childcare slot available, because it meant that that household had to do something differently or was able to engage in the economy in only certain ways as opposed to in other available ways. And I can send around that report if people are interested in reading the whole thing.
That's your typo.
Yeah, you got my typo. Thank you. I will fix it before it goes online. Appreciate it. Thanks for the keen eye. So let's, we've talked about these costs. Let's talk about income and savings for households. And how am I doing on time? Am I doing okay? Okay, all right, great. So here's what actual household income is in New Hampshire in 2024. You can see that pie chart on the left. About a median household income, again, was about $100,000. Average household size was about 2.4 people. And 17% of households had incomes above $200,000. A little under 1 in 4 had incomes below $50,000, and about 11% had incomes below $25,000. That's a slice within that less than 35 slice you see on the pie chart. How does that all compare to poverty level incomes? Poverty in 2024, because it's adjusted for inflation each year, for a single person under 65 was about $16,000 a year, and poverty for a 3-person household, one of those people being a child, was about $25,000. So about 99,000 Granite Staters which is about 7.2%, which is a low poverty rate relative to the most every other state in the rest of the country. We do have the lowest poverty rate in New Hampshire. It's about 99,000 people that were at those lower income levels. So again, think of those relative to those cost of living estimates and some of those other specific costs that we just discussed as well. And a broader measure, if you survey households, which the Census Bureau did from 2020 to 2024, this was an experimental survey that is not being continued at the state level. They surveyed Granite Staters and people in every other state about the difficulty, among other things, about the difficulty affording usual household expenses in the last 7 days. And you can see in 2020 and 2021, it was actually a little above a quarter and then a little below a quarter of adults identified that. And in 2022, and if you look at the month-to-month data, this is really driven by the Russian invasion of Ukraine and the increase in fuel prices that happened around that time. That's where we see this increase that pushed it up to about a third of adults, saying it was somewhat or very difficult to afford usual expenses. That dropped to about 30% in the data that was collected during 2024. But again, a broader measure of which households might be struggling that measures a little bit more broadly than that 7.2% poverty rate. And where are incomes higher or lower in New Hampshire? And what you see on this map, which there's an interactive version of this map online, so I can send that around later if people want to poke through. What you see in green are the municipalities where the median income is higher than the statewide median. What you see in orange is the municipalities that have a lower than statewide median income. And because there's statistical uncertainty, the communities that are in that sort of yellowish color, those are ones where they're about the same as the statewide median, or we don't have enough data to tell. It's statistically indistinguishable. Okay? So what you see is the southeastern part of the state has more of those higher income communities, although more have been showing up in the Lakes region as well in the most recent data. And in the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission's region, all communities have higher than the statewide median household income, except for Francistown, which is statistically indistinguishable, and Manchester, which is lower. And one of the other ways that we can measure household financial strength is what are the assets that households have? And this is a survey of all households, or it's a survey of households in the United States, so not limited to New Hampshire, that asks, how would you pay for an unexpected $400 expense? And the percentages you see here are people who say they would not pay for it with cash savings or a credit card to pay it off at the end of the month. They'd do something else. They'd sell an asset they wouldn't be able to pay it. They'd borrow money that they would have to pay over a longer time horizon. And that number dropped from 2013 to 2019, from 50 to 37%, which is, again, this is a good sign that people may be more able to pay for an unexpected $400 expense, an alternator, a tire, that sort of thing, with multiple tires, hopefully at that point, although they are getting more expensive. 2020 and 2021, we see it dropped even further. That was likely in part because of federal assistance to households, right? That allowed for a little bit more of a cash cushion, particularly for lower income households. And then 2022 to 2024, we see that about level. So that is, that suggests, and other research suggests, that those household savings have been depleted. We look at the data that we have from just 2019 that was done in one study for New Hampshire. This is the percentage of households that don't have at least $2,000 in emergency savings. So they don't have that cash cushion of $2,000 in emergency savings. And that was highest in Manchester and then Grafton and Coos counties to the north at 35, 36%, statewide a little over a quarter, and then Nashua and southeastern Hillsborough County and outer Manchester Metro, you can see in the 20s. Is that my time limit? Okay. Yes, all right, good. We talked about other data. I just want to note there are other ways to measure economic well-being in communities. So here's, for example, the communities in the region that are based on the IRS reported aggregate tax returns. This is the percentage of tax returns that are over $100,000 in income. If you wanted to measure the other end of the income scale, you can look at free and reduced price school meal enrollment by municipality as well, and see there's some significant variation. You know, Wyndham's at the bottom at about 3%, Manchester's at about 55%, right? So you can see that community by community based on administrative data where there are other variables, but surveying is not one of them. And then relative to where the economy is today, our workforce, our labor force in New Hampshire has gotten back to those pre-pandemic levels about. So the number of people who are working or are looking for work and are New Hampshire residents grew in 2024 and 2025 and is about back where it was in 2019. The number of people employed is not growing as quickly. It is close to where it was in 2019, but we could see that there's actually a bigger gap of increase in the number of unemployed residents seeking work, right? People who are on that unemployment rate in 2025. This measure, I'll summarize quickly. This measure is just the number of available jobs in the state divided by the number of unemployed workers. So this is a measure of that labor force constraint. And here you can see in the run up to the pandemic, there were just under 2 jobs for every unemployed worker. And that shot up in early 2022 after a big dip to about 3.5 jobs per unemployed worker. That's down to about 1.5 jobs per unemployed worker. So that suggests our labor force shortage in the state may be easing. That's probably temporary given the state's demographics. But it does suggest we're at a point where the economy is changing a little bit. On the left side, you can see reported jobs from employers. That's a 6-month rolling average. You notice that's going down, right? That there aren't being very many jobs added in the state thus far in 2025 based on the data we have now, which could be revised. But it's not suggesting that the job growth that we've seen in prior years is continuing apace, at least what we know so far. And the unemployment rate in New Hampshire, I've shaded in blue the 3 6-month periods where the pandemic was impacting it the most, but I shaded in orange all the other 6-month periods where the unemployment rate in New Hampshire was above 3%. So we have had one of those again in the first half of the year. 3% is still low unemployment rate, but it does suggest the economy may be slowing down. There are some key takeaways to summarize everything here, but I'm hoping that you've all received the upshots from the presentation. I do want to note that resources do vary considerably by community, and there are other creative ways to measure those variations, and that may be useful for you in your planning purposes. And that some of the recent labor force growth that we've seen, I think, is likely temporary and a sign that the economy is changing, the economy is slowing, as opposed to the demographic tides of the state are changing more broadly. And if you wanted to learn more, there's more resources available here. Again, I'll post this online. And if you wanted to sign up for our newsletter, here's the QR code to be able to do so. And if I have any time left, I'm happy to take any questions. Yes.
With the Feds just raising up the interest rate 25%. Now looking at today, they're talking 1% as is the next one, couple of weeks. How much of the Fed's driving that number affected jobs?
So it does affect it because it gives some companies a little bit more certainty as to how much it's going to cost to borrow money. I don't think that the interest rates are the primary reason why job growth has slowed. I think it's other types of uncertainty that are primary reason why the job growth has slowed. Tariffs are likely part of it. If we look at the biggest swings in the national economy thus far this year, it has been on exports and imports as companies are trying to adjust or get ahead or react to the tariff changes that they're seeing. So that's likely a big part of the uncertainty. Lowering the interest rate likely helps, but I don't know that that's the reason why companies have been slower too. It probably helps the interest rates a little bit for homeowners or people who are looking to buy a home, but those tend to track the 10-year Treasury yield, and that behaves somewhat differently than what we see from the Federal Reserve interest rates.
Another couple of questions here before we move on. I'll go ahead, Peter.
Bill, I'm Peter Griffin from Whiteham. As part of the, and I do get your newsletter.
Thank you.
Very helpful. as part of the employment statistics, forgive me if I miss it, have you evaluated how many people have to commute out of the state because jobs are not available in the state?
I can't tell you the reason, but there's about 107, or no, it's a little over 100,000 people now who commute out of state in the 2024 data. So is it because jobs aren't available? I can't answer that, but I can answer that we still export about 100,000 workers.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
How many do we import?
It's a good question. I didn't look at that in the 2024 data, but it's more on the order of, I believe, 20 or 25,000. So we are net exporter. I could say that with certainty. We're a net exporter of workers, and most, but not all of those are going to Massachusetts. We do collect a little bit more from Maine and Vermont, and people from Massachusetts who cross into New Hampshire.
Any other questions in-house?
If you stop sharing, we can see if there's one.
Great, I will stop sharing. Yep.
Any questions from our virtual audience? Not seeing any. Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bill.
And I'm sure we look forward to the presentation being available.
Yes, and I will send around the link for it.
Okay, next order of business is presentation of the awards.
Wow. So it's back to did have a little PowerPoint on this, but I'm not doing that. I think I'm going to ask Joanne to step in and do the first presentation.
Okay. So David Priest actually, sorry, just get some space here. David Priest, who is the former executive director of Southern New Hampshire Planning, actually made this nomination, which has been, and I would just like.
Oh, it's over here at this table. Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you so much. Thanks, Zach.
And I would like to read it for him. I did put in a few things to add to it. I'm sure he's fine with it though. So the Closson Award recognizes individuals who have made exceptional contributions to public service. Barbara Griffin's extensive and impactful work across various organizations, including our collaborations at Southern New Hampshire Planning, the PLC, and the New Hampshire State House of Representatives, where she served for 8 years, unequivocally demonstrates her exceptional eligibility for this prestigious award. Barbara first applied for membership in this organization because she believed that planning issues would be important to our communities and state. This organization helps our communities to ensure that the funds available for roads and infrastructure are applied appropriately. Over the years, I have had the privilege of working alongside Barbara. Her dedication, insight, and collaborative spirit have been invaluable. She consistently goes above and beyond, demonstrating a profound commitment to improving the lives of others through her public service. I have witnessed firsthand her ability to navigate complex issues with grace, diplomacy, and unwavering dedication to the greater good. Her contributions are truly remarkable, and her impact on our community is undeniable. Barbara also spent many years volunteering in Goffstown. She served as a library trustee for 13 years. She spent 12 years on the Board of Selectmen. She also served on the Budget Committee, CIP Committee, Solid Waste Commission, Conservation Commission, Piscataquag Land Conservancy, and is currently serving on the Planning Board. In her spare time, Barbara had her own law practice for many years. She now does guardian work for private parties and the state. She has a law degree from Suffolk University and a master's in social work from Boston University. She lives with her husband, parrot, and dog. I believe that recognizing her contributions with the Closson Award would be a fitting tribute to her years of selfless dedication and service. Yay!
We have flowers for you. The award, this did not come in time, but we have flowers for you. So we thank you so much for your service.
Yes.
Yay. So, and we have some online applause. Thank you for that. So our Tethers Award nominee and the person who also nominated Naomi Bolton was not able to make it today. Naomi is on a train in North Conway heading up Mount Washington or something like that. And she was going to try to make it, but I'm going to guess that the Wi-Fi might not be so good. But let me just say really briefly, and this is in part from the planning board chair who nominated her, as well as her own words, but her career spans more than 3 decades of dedicated service to the town of Ware and to also Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission. And from her earliest days in municipal government, she developed a passion for planning and zoning, keeping boards functioning even during challenging times and ensuring residents had a trusted resource to rely on. She has played a vital role in regional initiatives ranging from master plans and scenic byways to hazard mitigation and community path programs, always bringing a thoughtful, transparent, and collaborative approach. Beyond her technical expertise, Naomi's genuine love for her community and her steady leadership have made her a cornerstone of local and regional planning. And so we just want to congratulate her for receiving the Tethers Award. All right, so we'll toss those bouquets out.
Congratulations again to Barbara and Naomi. Next, we have the membership dues schedule that we are asked to approve that came your packets. It's largely unchanged from last year. So hopefully you've all had a chance to examine it. And we have a motion to accept. Ellen? Second. And second. Any further discussion?
That was Arrow Road seconding?
Yes. Okay. There being none, all in favor of accepting the recommended dues as presented, say aye.
Aye.
And or raise your hand so we can see. Any opposed? The abstentions. Motion carried. Other business. Sylvia, do you want to just take this?
Yes, the last item is a carryover from our executive committee. We were 1 short of a quorum today. So we are at 7 members versus 8 of the required membership. And one of the things we had consensus on that we would like to bring forward is the painting of our soffits. If you go outside, you probably don't look all the way up to our rooftop, but if you go outside, you'll see that that soffit is peeling and has been peeling for a while. Actually, when I first came here, I convinced David that we should paint it because the big chunks of paint were falling. We're not quite at that terrible spot yet, but it's getting there. And we've had 3 good, that's the grounds, 3 good estimates, and we'd like you all to act on that. And so many papers, so little time. Let's see, where is it?
I move we authorize the staff to go forward with.
And the recommended was the lowest price.
Great.
Just so you know, so that's easy.
And the contractor also had great support.
Aloyo, you have it in front of you probably. Who's the Romaine
painting
painters? And it came highly recommended also from Joanne from Goffstown. So
we have a motion from Chris. We have a second.
John has a question.
Oh, sorry.
My question is to contractors. I don't know what the fee is and anything, but is there any monies in there in case this is an old building? And they're gonna peel things off, lead falling off of a building.
That did not come up last time, so I'm gonna guess it was not an issue, John. It's a great question.
All that with the renovation when we moved
Yeah, I
here.
think so. I think that's-
That was
Yeah.
a big part of the cost when we moved here.
Yeah, it's just over $7,000 and change is the fee we're talking about. But the reason why I'm bringing it forward is we have this window right now, very dry weather. It's a great time to paint, so we'd love to get this started.
I would just note also to John's point, should any latent conditions on this project or any other project come up that we need to address, we do have a building reserve fund that can cover those costs if necessary.
Thanks, Nate. But did we, Earl, did you second?
I'm happy to do that.
Okay. Chris. Okay, all in favor of authorizing the commission to go ahead with the quote from Romaine Painting on the Soffits, indicate by saying aye and or raising your hand. Any opposed? Abstentions? Oh, sure.
They're gonna replace one of those boards up there, they're gonna use regular, right now. But it's plastic stuff, that.
We talked about that, about keeping the character of the building intact. Yeah, I do. Okay, that's carried. Any other business to come before the commission?
No.
Good. Then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, everyone. Grab a
Second.
cookie on your way out.
All those in favor indicate by hurrying towards the door.
Bye, everyone.
PHEP actually.